And I don't know, maybe this is something that you, for instance, Hutch, could like illuminate. But I'm curious. I mean, I think for context sake, we think about Deadpool now, like this R-rated film that made so much money and was so successful with critics and fans. But you guys were in development. This was going to be R before Deadpool came out. You didn't know there would be that audience. Was the studio always on board 110%? Was there a massive fight in any way on any of the story points that we eventually saw that landed on the big screen?
There really wasn't. You know, the key catalyst in this, honestly, in my opinion, was Jim, because we had had conversations in different iterations, and even going back long before the Wolverine, about more grounded storytelling within the universe. But candidly, I don't think we were equipped yet. We, and I'll say it on behalf of the studio and even the various people involved, and Jim was sort of a catalyst in so many different ways in galvanizing the studio's confidence about doing something bold, in the conviction that he had about the tone that it required, in the the kind of amazing instinct and navigational skill he had about where we needed to go with the story. He really was, in the best sense of what I think of as a filmmaker, was the captain of this journey. And that was obviously in conjunction with you, unquestionably, and from the beginning. But for me, I honestly, and this is, we often say this about actors, and it's certainly true of Hugh in this role, but I cannot picture another filmmaker doing anything even close to what was accomplished with this film, other than Jim. And that I think that's how significant change occurs in storytelling, in filmmaking, is when somebody comes along that has the combination of talent and passion and instinct and conviction and skill. And that's a rare thing. I'm describing a very small group of people, but it really is. It is.
And guts. No, I'm going to talk before you.
Go.
Well,
it seems like a good moment to let you guys talk.
And guts. And I was so excited. This is my third film with Jim, and we always talked about doing stuff, but along for the 17 years that we worked together. But to have a blank canvas for Jim, I mean, unfortunately, you had to inherit an actor. But apart from that, it was a blank canvas in terms of script, of what we did with it, and we really were. Steve Asbell and Emma Watts and we had a meeting at a hotel in Los Angeles early on, and I thought that would be tough, that meeting, where I said to Jim, I said, I'm just going to go and have a meeting so that they know that I'm really in, and it's not just you and not just you making. And that was about a 3-minute meeting. It was literally like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, no, I'm really serious. Like, this is what we want to make. Yeah, great, let's go.
We kept bracing for people to be opposed to us.
Yeah.
And certain things conspired, I think, in our favor. One was Deadpool eventually came out and was a massive success, so that kind of defanged the fears about rated R quite as much. Also, we promised to make the movie for less money so that we could be rated R, so that helps.
That always
them.
helps.
But the last thing, that I talked about when the movie came out, but I think is really interesting, is one of the main reasons I wanted it to be R wasn't per se blue language or violence, while all those things were in some ways, particularly the violence for this character, a value added for me in some ways. It was really because when you make a movie of this scale or with this kind of pressure on it, whether it's a smaller one or a bigger one, but still it's a summer movie, there's a lot of pressure on the movie in the marketplace. And if the movie's rated R, frankly, it gets graded on a curve. Not everyone can go. It's just that simple now. Not every 14-year-old or 11-year-old or 6-year-old, God willing, is going to be being able to buy tickets to this movie. So that it reduces the box office. Okay, so that's a problem for the studio. That's why we made it cheaper. But it does something else. It suddenly means you're not making a movie for 6-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 11-year-olds. And the kind of story you can tell and the way you tell it, when you're not concerned with establishing cutesy sidekick characters that become something that they give away or someone makes action figures out of, or that you're not worried about the attention span of a 7-year-old and whether they're going to be looking up from their gummy bears or not, whether you're just telling a story for essentially grown-ups. You know, a huge part of the comic book world of the graphic novel is adults who read them, not children. And that at some point, the marketing skew when you make these movies all aimed at carrying really young children along, first of all, it produces movies that are frankly, even at PG-13, too violent for kids, in my opinion. But second of all, it also cheats grown-ups of having some part of their fantasy experience or their comic book experience honored with adult themes and ideas. And I think that by getting a rated R, it gave us a driver's license to make, I hope you agree, a more sophisticated movie, or a movie that even took its time sometimes with the characters as opposed to having to gun along so fast.
One of the, yeah, well said, definitely.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we're all relieved that the audience was there and received it as well as they did. I mean, let's talk a little bit about the luxury of having a Q&A like this a couple months after it's been out, as we've all seen it, probably multiple times, so we can talk a little bit about the ending. Hugh, you've had a lot of time to kind of think about how you want it to go out. Specifically, I would think literally how the ending would look to you, like what your last moments on screen would be as this character. Did you have thoughts that you shared with James and Hutch in terms of what the final moments of Logan should be, what the last words should be? How did that, were there alternates to that, sort of the last scenes of the film?
I'm going to be honest, I was a bit of a pain in the ass for Jim, and I was wrong 95% of the time, but which made it even more amazing. But there was a lot of things that I was like, Jim, no, and I would fight, okay, and he would listen to me, but listen, I think there. And when I saw the movie, it was a litany of, yeah, you were right, you were right, you were right, you were right. Even before that, obviously, while we were making it. But all I knew, actually, at the end, we were pretty open about whether it would be, you know, for Logan or not, because Unforgiven was a huge influence for me. And actually, the film is more devastating for me, the fact that he just rides out of town unforgiven and somehow damned in his heroism. And I thought it was such a beautiful, poetic finish. I said, whatever we finish with, it has to be earned and it has to feel in keeping. And so when we went into, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we decided whether he would die or not.
No, it was really not. It was about, I think, earning the right ending.
Yeah.
But I think we wanted it to feel over, meaning we wanted a sense of a curtain coming down at the end, not a kind of, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I certainly didn't want people speculating that we had left a hole open for more money-making and bilking and doing, that I wanted it to be like, the curtains come down. We told the story, you know, and just like a regular movie, we're not leaving something out there. We're actually, the story's over.
But the highlight for me, and I'm saying this because so many people have asked me who came up with that ending with the cross turning into the X, and that was Jim Mangold. And so he wrote it, and when I read it, I thought, oh, that's beautiful. You know, it seemed very poetic on the page, but when I saw it, I cried. That's when I really, and I sat next to Patrick Stewart, we saw it for the first time, and both of us wept. And I was Stephen Colbert. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but I just saw him the other night. He says, I've seen it 3 times in the theater, in the cinema, and I cried every single time at that final image. But there is something so patient and courageous as a filmmaker just to allow everything to culminate in that one moment. And it's a privilege to be under the ground while that movie happens, that moment happens.